Hello and welcome to this episode of Ask a Hypnotherapist. My name is Tanya. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist out of Chicago, and I am doing moon rituals and all kinds of fun, amazing things that have to deal with the subconscious and healing. And today we have our first guest, but let me introduce my hostess with the mostest, Jazmin Calderon-Marquez, and she is in Florida, and she is at Hypnosis with Jazmin. Hi, Jazmin.
Hi. So today we have a very special guest. We have Frances O'Brien. She is a certified hypnotherapist and EFT therapist, and her company is Relieve Your Mind, and you can find her at relieveyourmind.com. And today, Frances is going to be helping us answer the question of how can you use hypnotherapy and EFT to find hope after loss. So welcome, Frances.
Thank you so much. It's my honor to be here.
We're so excited. So first, for any of our listeners, like they've heard a little bit about what hypnosis is, but what is EFT?
Emotional freedom technique is based on the same ancient Eastern healing belief system as acupuncture. And because it does not use needles, it uses your fingertips instead. Most people prefer it. Excuse me. And that belief system is that you have within you a series of meridians, like your veins, but these meridians transport your life energy. And anytime there's any problem anywhere in your life, regardless of what it is or what seems to have caused it, it's because there's a blockage somewhere along these meridians and your life energy is not flowing as it should. So the way that it works is that you tap on these points instead of getting needles put into them. You tap on them. Well, speaking of the problem, the blockage clears and the problem often goes away on its own.
That is so cool. So I had no idea that it was related to acupuncture, the pressure points. I know we had touched on it at HMI, but I actually didn't know like why we were doing the whole tapping thing. Oh, okay, cool.
So does that have anything to do with those meridian points? And I know that the things that happen to us subconsciously stay in our body. Now, does EFT, when you're doing that tapping on those points, does it do anything also to kind of help align your chakras? Does it help move kind of those energetic alignments too around?
Yes, because it's all about the flow of energy. If you are energetically out of balance, it will help with all of those things. Of course, there are also meditations that you can do with your chakras, imagining that they're spinning the way that they're supposed to be spinning at the speed at which they're supposed to be spinning. That will also help. But yes, EFT will help with any kind of energetic issues that you may be experiencing.
I love that.
So how do you combine hypnotherapy and EFT with your clients?
Usually I will do the EFT part first, depending on what it is that they want to accomplish. First, we do the tapping, and then we move into the hypnotherapy, and they support each other. I mean, you begin to experience the healing with the EFT, and then the hypnotherapy makes it more robust. It makes it healthier, and you accomplish even more by using both of them together.
It's like sweeping the dust from the house, and then the hypnosis at the end is like the dustpan, getting what's left up.
That's an excellent analogy. Yes, there you go.
I love that you thought of cleaning, because I thought of like pores. Like you're like, oh, you clean the skin and then you deep clean the pore.
Then you put the moisturizer on it. But I like that because I tried. So I do like some moon rituals and I do a lot of journaling. And when you're at the new moon, that's when you're supposed to start putting intentions in. So what I did is I went and took everybody through my version of EFT because I'm still learning it. But I love that part of melding those two together. And I think that my hypnosis was more successful because I used a little round of EFT just to kind of open up and bring, the EFT to life. Say, I believe it's such an underused tool for so many things too. Do you know, like, does it, because again, I'm a complete novice at it. So can it help with like older traumas, not just like the energy alignment now, but can it help with like childhood memories?
Yes, it absolutely can. As you know, what people often consider to be the problem is like an onion. And when you begin peeling away the first layer, there's more onion under it. And then, the second layer, there's still more onion under it. Usually, things that are happening today, even if it's something like a pain in your body, and you say, well, I know I have that pain in my body because I banged it into the cabinet door that was left open or something like that, it's often because of something from the past. And a lot of times when you begin, especially with tapping, when you begin to release the pain, you might have a memory, you might have more vivid dreams, you might, start journaling about something and go, oh, that's right. That thing happened to me when I was a kid. It can do all kinds of miraculous things. And usually it's because one thing is connected to another.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, that's what the body keeps score. So I love that it works not only for kind of like physical meridian points, but also psychological ones too, and the deep seated thing. Um, I had another question, but Jazmin, did you want to go first? Because I feel like I'm hogging her.
Oh, no. So when Frances and I first connected, like one-on-one, it was to talk about our grief work. And I was interested in what she did versus like what I did. And today's question was about hope after loss, right? And how EFT and hypnotherapy can help with that. And I think a lot of our listeners could connect with that because a lot of people don't know how to deal with the many different versions of grief. So I was wondering if Frances could share some stories or her perspective of how useful these techniques are in helping with that.
Well, I am very grateful for these techniques because, as you alluded to, people who've lost a loved one feel like that it's final, and they have all this love to give, and yet there's no, the person is no longer there to receive it. But the truth is, we are all energy. We are, yes, at this moment we're incarnated into, say, 3 separate bodies, but we're really all one energy, and that energy cannot be destroyed. It can't be created either. What can be created are our bodies. But so you didn't only get that loved one in this incarnation. You've known that loved one and maybe even in different kinds of relationships. Maybe this relationship, it was a lover, but last relationship, it was a sibling or something like that. And the next relationship, it'll be a grandparent, next incarnation, it'll be a grandparent. But, energy is neither created nor destroyed. So when your loved one makes their transition and they take a different form, you still have a place to send that love. And often, there's a guided meditation that I do in hypnotherapy where you get to spend time with your loved one again. And of course, we learn that one at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute. But every single time I've done it with a client, like a single tear will roll out of their eye. And to me, that feels like a printed receipt that they have made contact. And every single person who's done it has said that it's really helped them a lot. It's very healing to do it. And in addition to that, with EFT, often after you've lost a loved one, especially, of course, other things trigger grief. It could be a loss of a job or a loss of a friendship or something like that. But whatever it is that's triggering your grief, you will probably feel stressed about it. You'll probably feel tense about it. You may start to have physical issues because when you're stressed and tensed, your body starts to act out. Mm-hmm. And the EFT is very helpful with that, to get rid of those things and to uncover the emotional cause behind it.
So my next question, if it's okay, Jazmin, Frances, what was your first experience with EFT when you said, this is for me and I want to share this with everybody?
My first experience was, of course, I learned it from Susie Kappas at HMI, and I went to her shortly after my mom had passed away, and she was my mentor. And I went to her first session shortly after my mom had passed away. And now Susie and my mom were nothing alike, except that they're both very sweet, very gentle people. But Susie's this young, gorgeous woman, and my mother was 94 when she passed away. She was beautiful also, of course, in my opinion, but otherwise they really weren't very similar. But for a time, when Susie and I were tapping on the feelings that I was having then, because I loved my mom very much, but I think I was kind of the black sheep of the family. I didn't quite fit in with their way of doing things. So it's a little difficult when somebody you love dies, that you don't have the best relationship and you didn't have a great relationship with them. But while Susie was coming up with phrases for me to say, I swore for several seconds that she was channeling my mother. And it was the most healing, I'm even getting chills telling you this. It was the most healing, peaceful, pleasant, one of the most healing, peaceful, pleasant experiences that I have had in my life. And I even told her afterward, it seemed like you were my mom for a few minutes there, you know? And so that was the thing that really, really sold me on it.
That's a beautiful experience. And I feel like when you find your passion, it's usually something that really hits home, and it hits your heart in such a good way. And then, it's just like I don't know, like when you find your perfect wedding dress, you're like, this is it. But much more healing for the soul.
That's a great way to put it. It's when you just know, and you might not need physical evidence to know that you know, but you know, and you're just saying, okay, yeah, this is for me. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
For me, it's like a spiritual click. Like all of a sudden it clicks into place and it just makes sense. There's no way to, like you said, physically describe it. You just know. And you're like, for me, it's peaceful. Like so for me, it was past life regression with hypnotherapy. And I had no idea. And honestly, the past life that I experienced was a little traumatic, but it made so much sense. So much sense that I was like, it just clicks, and you're like, I need more of this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just out of curiosity, were you in your past life also a healer?
And that one, no.
Oh, okay.
In some other past lives, I've had, I'm trying to go through them, and I don't know. They've all been very different. And in that one particularly, I don't know, I was married, but not allowed freedom in a way. And it was very sad life. And I died very sad.
Oh.
We'll get into that in another past life regression episode. No.
So real quick, I'm sorry. So Frances, when you had that experience and you felt that, what was like the first, when you showed somebody else how to do it and you had that therapy session with them, and that confirmation with that tear rolling down their face, it's gotta just be such a beautiful wake up call to so many people need to experience that. I'm sure that feedback of that emotional piece that kind of comes over you with it. Because I know that they have tapping for minor things like, I just don't want to eat chocolate anymore, kind of, or whatever, smaller interactions. Because that's one thing I try to explain to people about hypnosis. It's not just quitting smoking and losing weight. There's so many more advanced uses of hypnotherapy out there in the simplest techniques for just self-preservation, mind, body, and spiritual preservation. And I always wondered, how big EFT could take care of an item of feeling, not just like, okay, I'm a little anxious, what's going on? And I love that tool for that. Is there do you have to do more rounds of EFT for deeper seated traumas or deeper seated grief or the things, or is it kind of just what your body feels like when it's done? Like, when do you know when to stop?
Well, the goal, of course, with EFT and with hypnotherapy is ultimately to feel better. And the way EFT does it is that it disconnects you from the negative energy to which you're connected, whatever that may be. And in the case of grief, and if say the death was sudden and the person who survives was very much in love with the person who suddenly died, and they died at a young age, and they have young children or something like that, and it's just like trauma on top of trauma. Sometimes, yes, that will take longer to do, and often it will be difficult for the survivor to do the tapping initially, and they may cry through it, and that's fine. I remember somebody I worked with, and I offered to help her with EFT, and she had a lot of difficulty. Her husband had died suddenly at a relatively young age, and she felt a lot of guilt because she'd been the one to bring him to the hospital. Really, it turns out the hospital didn't perform the way it should have, and that's why her husband eventually died. But at this point, this was very soon after her husband had died, and she was saying, she had a lot of difficulty saying the part at the end that when you're doing a setup statement, she had a lot of difficulty saying, and I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. But we got to a point where she was able to say that. And the goal with EFT is to tap enough rounds so that you begin to feel better. You begin by choosing, you write down what your problem is, what the issue is that you want to rid yourself of. And then you choose a number from 1 to 10 that represents how distressed you are about it. And if you're feeling like, and some people will even choose a number higher than 10, they'll say, 14, something like that. But you want to tap until you can assign it a lower number. And then you take a nice deep breath and you reassess the number and you decide, do I want to keep using the same terms the same phrases I've been using, or do I want to add something, or do I want to alter it in some way? And then you do some more tapping. And the goal is to get you to a place where you feel really good, And so for somebody who's very, very, their grief is new and there are a lot of traumas on top of traumas, it may take quite a few sessions to get them to a place where they feel really good about themselves, about their lives, and what's going on. So yeah, it can sometimes take a while, but you still should experience some improvement in each round that you do. And when you're finished tapping, if you would still assign it the same number, then you want to do more tapping for that round on those phrases.
Nice. Thank you for that.
Oh, of course.
Does the
Thank you
tapping
for asking.
change depending on the issue, like the pattern of tapping, or is it generally like the same pattern, but then you change the wording depending on the issue?
I use the same tapping points because I've had so much success with them. Usually when I am done, well, the first thing I do is and I love this, when my clients are telling me what the problem is, I write down their words as closely as I can, and then I use their words for the phrases while we're tapping. And it's just stunning to me how frequently people will say, "How did you know to say that? That was so spot on." Because you don't hear your own subconscious telling you these things, but other people can, which is why it works. It's usually so much more effective to tap with a professional than it is to do it on your own. And after I've done a round of tapping with a client, I will ask them, how are you feeling? Would you assign it a different number? And did anything come up while you were tapping? Did you have any thoughts while you were tapping? Because sometimes that's where the onion starts to peel its layers away. They'll say, well, it doesn't make any sense, but I'd like to add this thing from my childhood or something like that, and it does make sense because things are connected.
And go ahead, Jazmin. I'm sorry.
No, I was just noticing, so like the numbers and like what brings up, it also reminds me of EMDR, which is like the eye rapid movement technique. And I just love all these different modalities because, like I always say, they're cousins of each other. and you just find the one that attunes the most with you. And then also as hypnotherapists and EFT therapists, right? The more tools we have in the bag, like we could just pick which one applies to that person the best. But we all know that it's going to the same goal, which is fantastic.
Yes. Yes. And you're absolutely right. EMDR and EFT are certainly cousins of each other. They are, and hypnotherapy is as well. They all begin with the subconscious is clinging to the problem that the conscious mind wants to release, and but they both give you the time to, they both give your subconscious a voice, which means, and when your subconscious feels heard and understood and listened to, it's so much more likely to cooperate with you to get rid of this problem than if you just say, I'm going to stop smoking now, or I'm going to not eat chocolate anymore, or something like that. If you just try and make a change on your own and it's not in the script that your subconscious runs on, then it's not going to allow you to make the change.
Absolutely.
So you're right.
And that's why I love the fact that you brought up, excuse me, I love the fact that you brought up about tapping with a therapist. I believe absolutely in self-healing. And I know that we can heal ourselves, but it's so much better to work on your self-healing with a therapist, with a hypnotherapist, an EFT therapist, because just like Frances said, it is an onion. And then once you start peeling off those layers, it's nice to have, especially with something like tapping, because of that energy we were talking about and that alignment with our chakras and our energy healing. We as therapists and as healers, we go on these journeys with our clients and we give them that kind of energetic feedback, and we have that intuition on how to help best, ask questions that really open those things up. So I love that you mentioned doing that EFT session with the therapist, because I believe that is so important to get support in those things and to see things and maybe have that feedback on things you would have normally thought about. But like how she said, going into that, there were more things underneath those layers that needed to come out. And when we're doing it for ourselves, sometimes we don't always see what's in there. But it's nice when a mechanic comes in and shines the flashlight, like right there, that's your problem.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that, because yeah, you can do it and know how to do it, but it's so much better to heal alone, alongside somebody, not just alone where you kind of are stuck in your own cycle of thinking and everything. And you can see the light, but it's nice to have the light next to you too. So that's amazing. Frances, what is your favorite part of doing this in a session, and how do you know like when to transition into the hypnosis from the tapping?
My favorite part is clients who they want to be healed. They want to be rid of something. They want to feel better, and they are willing to do the work to get themselves there. And if it's a problem that they would describe as, I've had this my whole life, and then they only come for 2 or 3 sessions, they're probably not going, if that's their sincere belief that they've had the problem at least most of their life, if not all of their life, they're probably not going to benefit from just a few sessions. But the ones who are willing to really invest in themselves and stick with it until they feel better and they have the confidence that they healed themselves. Yes, I was there, but I was the guide. I just showed them how to heal themselves. And when you've been working with tapping, again, the goal is to get the number as low as possible. So I would follow a client's lead as far as that goes and say, is that a low enough number for you? Or, do you want to keep working until we're at 0? And then also give the client the option to say if an hour-long session is enough for them, or if they'd rather do an hour and a half, because sometimes when you do both together, it does take more like an hour and a half to do both, with the talking and then the relaxation and the hypnotherapy, and then coming back up and then doing the tapping, or doing the tapping and then doing the hypnotherapy. So Yeah, I'm grateful to say that it's usually easy to follow their energetic lead, the client's energetic lead.
Love that. Thank you.
I want to share something that I have actually experienced EFT with Frances. And it was an amazing experience that made me a believer in EFT because, we had learned a little bit about it. We had touched about it, unless you went to go get the certification. But I didn't really fully understand until Frances did it with me. And I was just like, oh, I get it now. Oh my gosh. So, Frances, can you share with everyone who's listening how they can best contact you for hypnotherapy, EFT, and hope after loss?
Well, my website, as I believe you said at the beginning, was is relieveyourmind.com. My email address is Frances, Frances, at relieveyourmind.com. And email is probably the best way to get in touch. My phone number is listed on the website. You can also text me at that. Unfortunately, I can't always answer because I might be in with a client at the time that you contact me, but I can always get back to you within a few hours. And those are the best ways to contact me. And I'm just grateful for both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to list all that contact information in our description on our YouTube when this gets posted next week. And thank you again for today.
It was my honor, and it was just a pleasure to be in your energy and your light and your love. And I love you both.
We love you too, Frances.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining and listening for next week.
Bye.